Medieval age, medieval age, medieval age. Man, the medieval age sucked. I wish there would be at least one show portraying the medieval age in a more accurate way. The medieval time was shit. I mean, think about it. When you were lucky, you were living in town with 2 rooms in your apartment. One was the bedroom with one big bed for the whole family, and the other was the living room. And as you don't shit where you eat, you had a poop bucket in your bedroom. So what do you do with the shit? Of course, you threw it out of the window right on the street. So when I said the medieval time was shit, then I meant it quite literally. So many isekais try to, even though in a fantasy world, to portray the medieval age. They often really hard fail by doing that. Because yes, they get the style or the general idea of it, but they often fail in everything else. In the medieval age, you had nothing. You had no resources, no free time, almost no healthcare or entertainment. So of course, it was super boring and dangerous in the same time. But still, we have so many isekais trying to portray the medieval age in their fantasy world. They often try to explain everything, and I mean everything, by simply including things like cleaning magic. So this doesn't really make sense, and it is not logical at all. On the other hand, we have shows like Ascendance of a Bookworm, and why I like this show so much, I'm going to explain to you right now. Quick warning, from here on out we are going to have some small or minor spoilers for the beginning of this story from Ascendance of a Bookworm. I try to not spoil the main story at all, so if you didn't watch the show, I think the video should still be okay for you. At the beginning of the show, Mine wakes up and the first thing she realizes is the unbearable smell, which obviously makes sense considering that she is in the bathroom. The other thing she realizes is that her head is itchy. And also that makes totally sense because there's no such thing like a shampoo a commoner could afford. What would usually happen right now is that the main character gets out of bed and she or he meets his new family and figures out that he or she possesses a completely unrealistic superpower. Instead, what is going to happen is Mine gets out of bed and the first thing she realizes is her body is way too weak to do anything. Literally, the act from getting up out of the bed and into another room is already so exhausting that she cannot really do it on her own. The other thing she realizes is that the floor is covered in dirt, which also makes totally sense because even though they are not wearing shoes in bed, they're wearing shoes inside of the apartment. So they bring the dirt from outside of the street inside the apartment. So the whole floor is covered in dirt. These small details already show the way how the story tries to approach, to show this medieval styled fantasy world. And I think it is a very cool idea what they're trying to do here. And I also think that they are actually not really bad in doing that. Because even though not everything in the show is 100% logical, and even though not everything in the whole show is completely realistic, they still make a very good job in trying to show something that was never shown before. Of course, later on Mine tries to clean the room or the whole apartment, and she also tries to develop things like the simple all-in-one shampoo, but obviously it isn't going to be difficult because no one in this world really understands what she's trying to do. And therefore she often has people standing in her way or things she cannot do because she can simply not afford it because she is a commoner. At some point in the story, Mine accompanies her mother to the market. And on the market they're trying to buy meat for winter preparations. And here again, winter preparations is something that is barely shown in any story. Winter preparations are very important to survive the winter. Because of the cold and the snow outside, you cannot really buy things, go on the market or do your normal job as usual. You have to stay inside of your apartment and try to somehow survive the winter. So winter preparations are a really big deal in that world, and it is very important to do. The meat is hanging in the bare sun and some smaller animals are going to be slaughtered right on the market. So you can kind of understand the smell behind it. If you can't, just imagine the smell of death. If you still don't understand it by that phrase, it doesn't smell good. Small things like that already show again like how accurate they try to portray the show and how they show the whole world through the eyes of mind, which is another very important thing about Ascendance of a Bookworm, because instead of having very long explanations, you discover the whole world step by step by yourself. In other shows you have very long explanations for pages. People try to explain what country they are in, what the world is all about a ranking for simple monsters or how much money is worth. They often fail by that because it is boring. In Ascendance of a Bookworm you discover the story little by little through the eyes of mind, and when you think about it, it obviously totally makes sense, because when something is common knowledge, you would not explain everything which is common knowledge to a person. So imagine someone is asking you, what is a glass? You would just take a glass, point at it and say, this is a glass. You would not just explain how glass is made or what it is made out of. In fact, you discover the world so little by little that mine actually only realizes after around 1 year being in this world that it is in fact a fantasy world with magic and stuff. And she doesn't discover that by like this huge magician doing some magic spell. No, she discovered that by hearing about a fruit that can only be harvested when it is still frozen, because otherwise it would fly away at some point. At some point she also discovers a plant which is growing rapidly out of the ground by pulling out of the mana and the nutrients from the ground. And by little things like this, you discover yourself, and mine also discovers that it is in fact a fantasy world. All of that also helps the character development big time. Because instead of having an explanation for a character and having people like guild receptionist number 4 you don't really care about or her background story, you actually first hear about a character, then mine meets this character, then she learns something from the character, you hear a little bit about his background story, and then you start slowly, little by little, to really care about him, because you learn more about him, and the whole character feels more like an actual character with a personality and a background story. So it is actually a very simple but yet fantastic way to introduce a new character, because instead of just bam, here's a new character, they are just showing you the character, introducing the character to you, and then small by small, step by step, you get to know the character like you would actually do with a real person. One thing I still didn't really mention yet is the bookmaking part, which is like the main story of the whole show. And the reason why I did not mention it yet, I already said it before, is to not spoil it to anyone. All I'm going to say is that even though not everything makes 100% sense, it is a very, very logical and realistic way of how they try to approach this whole very difficult topic of creating a book in a world where not even paper exists. I think that everything I've mentioned so far combined show and explain why I think that Ascendance of a Bookworm is one of the best, if not even the best, fantasy show in an isekai settings today. So let me know what you think about Ascendance of a Bookworm in the comments below. Also, if you liked the video, leave a like and a subscribe, and see you guys next time. He possesses some, he or she, sorry. Yay! Mine, fuck.